Have you ever noticed how negativity doesn't usually start loud? It starts quietly, after disappointment, after betrayal, after loss. It starts when the soul gets tired of being hurt and decides that hope is too dangerous to trust. What if negativity isn't just a bad attitude, but a spiritual wound? Welcome to We Have a Spiritual Problem, a podcast where we confront the deeper questions beneath our personal struggles and collective crises. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. I am not a theologian or a philosopher, or at least in training. I am a PhD exercise physiologist with an interest in the intersection of the physical and the spiritual. Today, we are talking about negativity, not as a personality trait, not as a mood problem, but as a spiritual problem. We'll explore how negativity grows out of unhealed suffering, how it becomes armor for the wounded soul, and how it slowly erodes our capacity for meaning, trust, and love. This is a conversation about how the soul learns to say no to life and how it can learn, again, to say yes. Negativity. Negativity is one of those words that sounds simple, even shallow. We use it casually. She's so negative. He has a bad attitude. I'm trying to be more positive. But underneath that casual language is something much, much deeper. Negativity is not just what you feel. It's how you interpret reality. It is the story you tell yourself about what kind of world this is, what kind of people exist in it, and what kind of future you are allowed to expect. And that is why negativity is not merely psychological, it is spiritual. Because spirituality at its core is about how we relate to meaning, to suffering, to hope, to trust, and to the question of whether life itself is ultimately good, hostile, or indifferent. Negativity is what happens when the soul quietly concludes, life is against me. People cannot be trusted. Nothing really changes. Hope is naive. Joy is temporary and dangerous. Negativity is not loud at first. It begins as disappointment. Then it becomes caution. Then it becomes suspicion. And finally, it becomes a worldview. Most negative people are not bitter by choice. They are wounded by experience. They have loved and been betrayed. They have hoped and been disappointed. They have trusted and been hurt. And somewhere along the way, their soul decided it needed armor. Negativity is armor. It is the soul saying, I will never be surprised again. I will never be made a fool again. I will never hope too much again. But the tragedy is that what protects you from pain also protects you from joy. What guards you from disappointment also guards you from wonder. And what keeps you safe keeps you small. From a spiritual perspective, negativity is not just pessimism. It is the loss of faith. Not necessarily faith in God, but faith in life. To be spiritually healthy is not to be naive. It is not to be denying suffering. It is not to pretend that the world is safe and kind all the time. Spiritual health is the capacity to suffer without surrendering meaning. It is the ability to face pain without concluding that life itself is a mistake. Negativity says, this shouldn't be this way, and because it is, nothing is really worth trusting. Spirituality says, this is painful, but pain is not the final word. Negativity closes the soul. Spirituality opens it, carefully, courageously, and often trembling. Negativity is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet and sophisticated. It sounds like realism. I'm just being realistic. I don't expect much more. I've learned how people really are. I've been around long enough to know better. But realism becomes spiritual sickness when it no longer leaves room for mystery, grace, or transformation. A negative soul does not believe in redemption. Not necessarily religious redemption, human redemption. The belief that people can change, that relationships can heal, that life can surprise again. Negativity says, I already know how this story ends. And spirituality says, no, you don't. At the heart of negativity is a broken relationship with hope. Hope is not optimism. Optimism says things will probably work out. Hope says, even if they don't, life is still worth living. Hope is not prediction. Hope is allegiance. It is choosing to belong to life even when life has hurt you. Negativity is a kind of emotional exile. It is the soul standing at a distance from life, arms crossed, saying, "Prove to me that you are safe." But life does not work that way. Life requires participation before certainty, trust before control, love before proof. And this is why negativity is so deeply spiritual. It is about trust. Who or what do you trust when you wake up in the morning? Do you trust that the day has something to give you? Or do you assume it will take from you? Do you trust people until proven otherwise? Or do you distrust them until they earn a way into your heart? Do you trust yourself to endure what comes? Or do you live in constant anticipation of collapse? Negativity is not simply thinking badly. It is believing badly about life, about people, about yourself. And most often, negativity grows out of unprocessed suffering. Suffering that is not given meaning becomes poison. Pain that is not integrated becomes resentment. Loss that is not mourned becomes bitterness. Spiritual health is not about avoiding pain. It is about transforming pain into wisdom instead of turning it into a wall. When pain is honored, it becomes compassion. When it is denied, it becomes cynicism. Cynicism is pain pretending to be intelligence. A cynical person often believes that they are wiser than hopeful people. They think hope is childish. But hope is not childish. It is courageous. It takes more strength to love again than to close yourself off. It takes more bravery to trust than to retreat. Negativity is safe. Hope is dangerous. And that is why negativity feels easier as we age, as we experience loss, betrayal, illness, disappointment. The older you get, the more evidence you collect that life can be cruel. But spirituality is not about denying that evidence. It is about refusing to let cruelty have the final word. The spiritual question is not, is life painful? The spiritual question is life still meaningful? Negativity says no. Spirituality answers yes, though not easily, not cheaply, and not without struggle. Negativity narrows your world. It makes you suspicious of joy. It makes you uncomfortable with celebration. It makes you roll your eyes at wonder. Have you ever noticed how negativity is allergic to awe? A negative soul cannot stand people who are genuinely grateful. It cannot tolerate joy without explanation. It cannot allow mystery to remain mysterious. Everything must be reduced, dismissed, or defended against. But awe is a spiritual experience. Gratitude, and gratitude with two T's, an attitude of gratitude, is a spiritual experience. Wonder is a spiritual experience. Negativity is what happens when the soul stops being curious and starts being guarded. At its deepest level, negativity is a fear of being disappointed again. But disappointment is not the enemy. Meaninglessness is. You can survive disappointment if you believe your life still matters. You cannot survive meaningless without being numb, bitter, or empty. So the real danger of negativity is not that it makes us unpleasant. It is that it makes life feel unworthy of love. A negative soul does not fall in love with life. It tolerates life. It manages life. It endures life. But spirituality invites us to participate in life, to wrestle with it, to question it, love it, grieve it, and still belong to it. Negativity is withdrawal. Spirituality is engagement. Negativity says, I will not risk my heart again. Spirituality says a closed heart is already dead. This does not mean being foolish. It does not mean trusting everyone. It does not mean denying trauma. It means refusing to let trauma define you and your final identity. You are not what hurt you. You are not what you chose to become after being hurt. Spirituality begins when you stop asking, how do I avoid being hurt again? And start asking, how do I remain alive even when I am hurt? Negativity wants guarantees. Spirituality offers courage. Negativity wants safety. Spirituality offers meaning. Negativity wants control. Spirituality offers surrender. And surrender does not mean giving up. It means letting your life be larger than your fear. One of the most spiritual acts is learning how to say yes again. Yes to people. Yes to wonder. Yes to joy. Yes to grief. Yes to risk. Yes to love. Negativity is saying no in advance. Spirituality is saying yes despite the cost. And yes will cost you. It will cost you certainty. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you illusion. But no will cost you your soul. A negative soul is not evil. It's tired. It's hurt. It's afraid. But if it stays closed too long, it forgets how to open. And the tragedy is that many people die spiritually long before they die physically. They are alive, but they are no longer in love with life. Spiritual life is not about constant happiness. It is about constant relationship with joy, with sorrow, with mystery, with love, with death, with meaning. Negativity severs relationship. Spirituality deepens it. Negativity turns life into a problem that can be managed. Spirituality turns life into a story that can be lived. Negativity is allergic to gratitude. Spirituality is born from it. You cannot be deeply grateful and deeply negative at the same time. Gratitude, again with two T's, that attitude of gratitude, is not pretending things are good. It is noticing that not everything is broken. It is seeing light without denying darkness. It is loving what remains even after loss. Gratitude is the soul saying, I am still here, and that still matters. Negativity says, what's the point? Gratitude says, this moment is the point. Spiritual practice is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming open. Open to pain, open to beauty, open to change, open to love. Negativity is closing the door before life can knock. And here's the hardest truth. Negativity often feels morally justified. We believe our bitterness is earned. We believe our cynicism is evidence of intelligence. We believe our despair is honesty. But spiritual health is not about being right. It's about being alive. You can be right and still dead inside. You can be wounded and still be open. You can be broken and still be loving. The spiritual question is not, who hurt me? The spiritual question is, who am I because of it? Negativity makes you smaller than your pain. Spirituality makes you larger than it. Negativity says, this is who I am now. Spirituality says, this is what happened to me, not who I am. Negativity is letting pain write your identity. Spirituality is letting meaning rewrite it. And meaning is not something you find, it is something you choose. You choose meaning when you choose love over bitterness. You choose meaning when you choose curiosity over suspicion. You choose meaning when you choose gratitude over resentment. You choose meaning when you choose courage over comfort. Negativity is easy. Spirituality is hard. Negativity requires no risk. Spirituality requires your heart. Negativity will protect you from disappointment. Spirituality will give you a life worth being disappointed over. Because a life without risk is not a life. It is a prison. So if you find yourself negative, do not shame yourself. Ask yourself, what hurt am I still carrying? What loss have I not grieved? What hope did I bury because it hurt too much to keep alive? Negativity is often a graveyard of abandoned hopes. Spiritual healing is resurrection. Not dramatic, not magical, but daily. Daily choosing to stay open. Daily choosing to love. Daily choosing to see beauty where you could only see threat. Negativity is the soul saying, give up. Spirituality is the soul saying, I will try again. And sometimes trying again is the most sacred act there is. Because to love again after loss is holy. To trust again after betrayal is holy. To hope again after despair is holy. Negativity is not a flaw, it is a wound. And wounds do not need condemnation. They need care. So be gentle with your negativity, but do not let it become your home. Let it be a season, not a destination. Let it be a cry, not a creed. Let it be something you pass through, not something you become. Because life is still speaking to you. And spirituality is the courage to listen, even when you're afraid of what it might say. Negativity is silence. Spirituality is conversation. Negativity is withdrawal. Spirituality is relationship. Negativity is fear. Spirituality is love, wounded, imperfect, trembling love. And the soul was not made for safety. It was made for meaning, not for comfort, but for communion. Not certainty, but courage. Not control, but love. And love always begins when you dare to say yes again. Be good to yourself. Be good to others.